Hello. I wanted to talk today about freedom. And freedom is such a general term that we tend not to necessarily understand today. You can hear things like, well, of course I'm free, I live in the United States, or I'm free, I can go do whatever I want or buy whatever I want. That's not the freedom I'm talking about. The freedom I'm talking about is a sense of inner peace, freedom from anxiety, freedom from despair, freedom from depression or sadness. And I think this is a much more rare sort of freedom that I'm not sure many people have. Certainly, there are examples out there, and we regard them as the greats, right? So, I would say that Gandhi was free. He had an inner knowing. Jesus was free. The people who become our spiritual leaders have a freedom about them where they are in the world, but they're not necessarily of it. They have a higher sense of purpose. What happens around them doesn't necessarily bother them much, or if it does bother them, just simply being tends to fix their problems. And this is what I find to be true freedom. It simply boils down to allowing and surrender. And that sounds so counterproductive, counterintuitive, I'm sure. To be free, you must surrender to what is. And I think a lot of people probably hear that and go, what? And that's a completely understandable, normal response. But freedom as a knowing that everything is in order, that something bigger than us fuels the universe and everything we see around it, that's freedom. And once you have that, an inner knowing of peace, a sense of peace, a sense of wonder and amazement at the world, you become an observer in it. You don't feel like you are of it. You know you're in it, but you don't feel of it. And then all of a sudden, dormant faculties come alive. You have amazing things start to happen to you that you start to see much more frequently in your life. You start to notice the coincidences. And coincidences don't really exist, right? Because in mathematical terms, coincidence coincide, two angles that fit perfectly together. So there's really not such a thing as coincidence in how we use it in the language. Think of it mathematically. Things begin to coincide, they show up for you with little to no effort, and this is what freedom is. It's being detached from outcome. It's going about your life in a way that feels purposeful and being able to live here and now within the moment. This is true freedom. And freedom can come in any circumstance. It's the realization that while you may not control circumstance, you certainly control your reaction to circumstance. So suddenly, things like someone cutting you off on the road or someone being rude to you, these things no longer bother you because it's like watching a movie. It happens, you observe, but you don't internalize. So the self is truly free is the self that does not internalize. It realizes that what's happening out here is not happening in here. And you can be in the United States and be living a life of relative opulence and abundance and wealth and have that. If your biggest problem is someone cutting you off the road, you live a pretty good life, I'd say. Or you could live somewhere where violence and war and these horrible things are taking place and still have that this is happening out here. Whatever happens to the physical self is not happening to the soul or the spiritual self. And that is freedom. Freedom from the shackles of the physical. Freedom from attachment to circumstance. Freedom from expectation. It's going through life as water goes through a stream. It goes along the rocks, around the bends, but it never gets stuck. It flows, and freedom flows. That's what I wanted to talk to you about today. So maybe today would be a good day to choose freedom, to choose to go about and see the world, but not be attached to it. Try being an observer, a witness today, where you go through, you acknowledge what's happening around you. Of course, you interact because we are human beings. We have to interact with our surroundings. We don't have to internalize our surroundings. So go through today and just notice. Breathe through, but be detached. Choose that freedom. Choose non-reaction. And if you start to feel upset, breathe through it. And release it. Let it go. I've been starting to practice this more in my life, and I notice a much greater sense of peace. A much greater sense of freedom. I don't feel things that would bother me as much. If a child is screaming in a store, it's okay. Kids scream. It's what they do. If someone pushes past me in the grocery store line, that person must be in a hurry. Okay. If someone yells at me or gets upset or frustrated with something I do, that's them. That's okay. That's their choice. That's not mine to accept. That's them. That's where they're at right now. It's okay. And it's just an allowance of things to swirl around you. But you are the center. You are the eye in the hurricane. Untouched. Try it out today. I think you'll start to feel a greater sense of freedom too. Have a blessed day, and God be with you.